Welcome to the Tech Insider, where we talk to the people who can give you the insights and trends that matter to you in your business. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems. It is such an honor and privilege for me to introduce to our program today Michael Heath. Michael has been with Leica Geosystems since 2021 as an account manager and sales engineer, focusing on public safety applications. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Thank you for having me today.
So, Mike, I feel like we should reverse places here because it's my understanding that you actually started out way back when as a DJ for a radio program. And so I think you should be the host. I don't know. I think you do a better job of that.
Well, it's when I'm on video, that's more, I have to be behind the scenes with headphones on in order to get into that role. But yeah, that's, I did. And so that's always been kind of a hobby and passion of mine. But that is how I started in communications. Yes.
That's fun. And you were really young at the time, I think, when you first got into broadcast, right?
I was 15, still in high school, and the coach of a radio station, or the manager of a radio station, was the coach of my baseball team. And so my dad nudged me to talk to him about the radio station because he knew that I was really into it. And so I did, and I started by sweeping stairs and blowing leaves off the sidewalks outside and filing paperwork. And I finally learned some of the equipment, went in one day, recorded something, and next thing I knew, I was recording some commercials and doing overnight stuff. And then that kind of launched that. So it was really exciting.
Well, it sounds like it must have been a really fun job. I believe it was a country music station.
It was actually bluegrass music that I started in. And then, yes, went into country music and then eventually into top 40 and then back and forth from country. And the magic of radio, I could be on two stations at one time as two different names because of pre-recording different shows. So I had the opportunity to do that also.
Okay, super fun. And then you had a
Right.
situation, I believe it was back in 2007. Something happened and it was kind of a wake up call for you. It changed your whole trajectory of your career.
It did. It's interesting how much you know about me, by the way. But I was in radio, and I was in the Blacksburg, Roanoke, Virginia market, and I had been looking at. I just felt this pull to do a bit more than I was doing with my life. My dad was in law enforcement growing up, off and on auxiliary law enforcement, and then um, kind of was with the sheriff's department in North Carolina. And so I always had that deep respect for law enforcement and what they did for the community. And I was really contemplating applying to a state agency when Virginia Tech, the situation at Virginia Tech happened, the mass shooting there. And when I was actually on the radio, I changed my show over to start covering the events of Virginia Tech, all the vigils that were happening then, taking callers because I didn't quite know how to DJ top 40 music in a market that was just impacted so greatly by this event. So we just kind of had reflections and students on the air, and it really just inspired me to get more involved with the community. And obviously, seeing the Virginia State Police forefront into that investigation and all the images coming out of there, it just kind of led me to be inspired to apply and join the ranks of that department, which is kind of eventually what led me here today.
So I believe you spent around 13 years with the Virginia State Police as a special agent for much of that, right?
I did. I was a trooper for 10 years and a special agent for 4 years. So I kind of got right up to 15 years if you include the very long academy life that you have to go through before you achieve that. But yes, that was, I became an agent in 2018.
Are there any particular situations that really stand out in your mind from that time of your career?
Um, Probably being a part of, there were, a few different civil unrests that I was a part of as a state trooper. You're sent off to different regions of the state when different natural disasters happen. We had, a major case in Central Virginia that was multiple homicide case with an active shooter over a couple of different days. That was a pretty intense time, and just probably responding to different localities that needed help and backup during that time would be some of the things that stand out. Some riots, we would respond to those, and then as an agent, of course, responding all over the state for different homicides. There was, we had the event that happened with the on-air news anchor in the western part of the state, live on TV, the homicide there. So just being a part of kind of the activities during that time. Always just there were always so many different things that seemed to occur that it's hard to pick one as really a standout.
Well, and I know that technology played a pretty big role in how you approached your position there. I'm not sure at what point you started using laser scanning, but tell me about how you moved forward through that technology journey when you were with Virginia State Police.
Sure. So that department got on pretty early in laser scanning. I want to say in the early 2010s, when I was still on the road and had no idea what it was. And it was the investigations section. So these were the folks responding to the crime scenes. And our crash investigators were still using a lot of tape and wheels to measure crash scene, and some single point measurement devices. But the department jumped on Leica Geosystems due to the accuracy, the sophistication of the data, and they compared with other brands the data, and they just simply really liked Leica Geosystems. They demanded that type of accuracy, and of course, I found this out all retroactively because I became an agent in 2018. And when I joined the investigations division, I joined as a general agent. So I didn't have a specific job like polygraph examiner or, specifically a special agent accountant or something like that. So I had developed kind of a knack for understanding technology and being kind of the guy in the area that I could help with the computer systems reporting as we got more involved with supporting documentation electronically. And so when I came over to the investigation side, one of the first phone calls they had with me when I found out that I had gotten promoted into this position was, we have this scanner thing, this laser scanner, and the folks that were using it have kind of promoted out and they don't carry that specialty with them. And so we need to get back into laser scanning because we know that we're missing out, but there's nobody really here that's left that's kind of up on this, which is something I found being with Leica that occurs in a lot of departments. So they kind of had it right near my desk. When I, early on when I got there, and I opened the box and really started to try to figure out what this thing was and what it did. And that's how I pretty much immersed myself into the 3D laser scanning technology. And then we kind of went from there.
So you had to learn how to use the scanner thing. It was just handed over to you, like,
Yeah.
here, figure it out. Had you
Right.
ever worked with laser scanning data before? Had you seen any of the scenes that had been scanned with the laser scanner, or were you just jumping into it from step one?
I really was just jumping into it. I was familiar with the kind of CSI technology that you see in different documentaries or I've seen in cases, but not to any real extent being familiar with where that data actually came from. The collection of that data, I was not very familiar with, and of course, had no idea really once you collect the data how you get the data and what you do with the data and how you produce the deliverable that actually helps in criminal prosecution. So it was all completely new to me, but it was exciting to me also. There's some folks who are a bit adverse to jumping into technology, but for me, it was the right timing because they had just gotten a new laser scanner from Leica and really wanted to get into using it. And so I was able to just kind of take that on as a challenge. It was a new transition anyway from uniform to investigations. And so then I was kind of able to find my niche in how I could help the department and be an asset for the folks around me. So I really took it as as a great challenge.
I think for a lot of people in that situation, it would feel pretty overwhelming. I mean, it's not like you can just stop everything and learn the technology. You have to continue to do those investigations. You have to continue to go through those case files and learn the technology on top of that. How did you work through that learning curve?
Well, I'll tell you, it was the people around me that really helped. It was the agents that were around me that they had their own specialties. They were busy with those. So a forensic tech would go and process a crime scene. Well, if they're in charge of collecting the evidence, meticulously collecting the evidence, labeling the evidence, taking the overall photography, the crime scene photos, that's when laser scanning, when that would be another hat they would have to wear at the scene. So they needed someone to step in. So, but they all were proficient at being able to operate it at one point or another. So it was really leaning on them to help me and to kind of get that informal training with them, and to be able to show me what they have learned and what's been passed down to them, and to be able to work with multiple different people and learn best practices in scanning. So I really leaned on them a lot for that information. Everybody was kind of able to show me a little bit of this that they know how to do, and a little bit of this that they knew how to do. And then I was able to bridge that gap. And then, of course, made contact with our customer success and training manager, Ken Jones, who is a whiz at all of this. So having him on the phone and being able to talk with him and develop a relationship directly with Leica, that was a huge asset as well, that I could be a bit more independent, so that I didn't have to pull other folks away from what they were doing. And Leica really helped me in that case to become more familiar with how to use the technology.
How long do you think it took you to really become proficient at using the technology, going from knowing nothing about it, opening it up, pushing some buttons, to actually being productive and being able to deliver something that could be used in court?
Sure. Well, they had a great system there where there was a training, a forensic training, once a month. And so I was able to really get into that training day, and we dedicated a whole day to learning forensic data collection, forensic collection of all sorts, and laser scanning. So I was able to kind of take the laser scanner and meet with different folks who understood how it worked. So it was fairly quickly, because data collection, I kind of always thought, as long as I can collect the data at the scene, I've got time. So if I can just understand on the scene response how to collect the data, how to operate the machine, then once I have the data collected, now I can take time back at the office and really learn how to, best practices with that data management, how to get it over into the computer, and how to post process it. So the post processing is what would have taken the longest, of course, and going through the steps and bringing the data over. And of course, we're going back several years before things have really become just so more efficient, which I'm blown away at the modern offerings that we have now, which, I mean, to say 2018 wasn't modern, but it just the rapid growth in this space and the ease of use now. But I would say within, to answer your question directly, within a couple of months, I was probably scanning scenes at a proficient enough level that other people felt like they could go and do their jobs and trust me to collect the important data at the scene.
A couple of months. That's impressive. And you probably pretty quickly started seeing all of the advantages of using laser scanning to collect that data. Like you said, collecting the data is the time constraint part, where you have to move quickly. You've got to clear that scene. You've got to make sure that you capture all the evidence. And then once you have that, you can take your time with it, because you have everything right there. You can basically revisit the scene, right, at any time.
Exactly. You can kind of work a virtual crime scene, and then I'm able to work with the forensic tech and the investigator that's assigned to that scene. And if they want a certain angle, a witness position, a certain screenshot of something, I can get them that data and put it on a slideshow for them. Or, at that time we were doing screenshots, but of course the Leica deliverable software has now made that pretty easy as far as providing that data within the Leica software now. But it was all about data collection at the scene, making sure that I had an eye to see what we might want to look at later and make sure that it was all captured. But when you're capturing a scene 360 degrees, then it's catching a lot more than maybe what you would try to be intentional about taking a picture of. And then you're able to capture data that you may not have thought was important at the time. So I guess my point with that is that just having an understanding of where to set the scanner and how much data that it was actually capturing, and then being able to find that later and always revisit that scene, like you say. And maybe something in an interview with a witness or something in an interview with a suspect became important later, that maybe it didn't stand out at the scene, but having that scene captured in 3D and being able to go back and see that. And that made me feel like a really important part of a case. When I could be an asset to the agent assigned to investigate the case, or the forensic technician assigned to that case, and when I would be able to go and gather that information for them and us collaborate, and just to be able to have that data, I started to see very quickly how important it was to have the scan data of the scene, because you just never know when you're going to have to revisit that scene.
Can you think of a case, and maybe this was your first scene that you scanned with the laser scanning technology, but can you think of a case where that laser scan data just really paid off in terms of having the technology, in terms of giving you that aha moment of this is why we need to use this technology?
Sure. For me specifically, there was a homicide on a roadway, double homicide, unfortunately, and there was trying to piece together the path that the suspect had taken. And so we have technologies like geofencing cell phones, and working with the cell phone companies to track that. Where, in this case, a cell phone was thrown to the side of the road, but at a different location. So it was piecing together the path and then trying to also gather intent. So we have the crime, we have the double homicide. Now we have to find the suspect, and when you find the suspect, you have to be on a fact-finding mission to gather if there was, what level of intent there was here for the crime to have occurred. And a lot of that intent can just be to what lengths the suspect went to achieve committing that crime, and then what crime might have been currently being committed when your next crime was committed, and just telling that story. And that's what laser scanning is to me, is really telling a story. So I mean, just one of several cases in particular. Vehicle goes through the median of the roadway, leaves the roadway again, comes back another time, goes back through the median. The bodies are dumped at different times, cell phones dumped at a different time. So trying to piece together when all of that happened, but using the laser scanner in the median to actually document depressed grass within the median, setting the laser scanner on a tripod. With the naked eye, you could see that there are tire tracks here, but being able to set the scanner in the middle of them and scan that and get the different reflectivity levels on the depressed grass, and then being able to see that on the computer screen from an overhead view, because you've got the Z-axis that you're looking over top of, and being able to see the tire tracks, we could instantly, I took it later in post-processing and was able to draw lines in the Cyclone software on all the tire tracks. And then just suddenly a clear picture occurred from where the vehicle went off on a westbound side and the tracks associated with that, and how the vehicle went back down the opposite side of the road, eastbound, came back, went back into the median. And we were able to prove that the suspect was on scene and disposed of the bodies at the scene, left the scene, came back, the lengths he went to then try to cover up the crime, what might have happened when he came back, and then left the scene again. And just being able to tie that together was really critical in the interview stages of trying to pinpoint what happened, and really to poke holes in any kind of statements from the suspect. Because if you can do that, you can start to get to the truth. And that's what criminal investigations are. It's fact-finding missions, and the laser scanners help us to collect the data to find the facts, because it's a factual device. It is collecting what is there, and there's no way around it. It's just going to show you exactly what was at the scene. So being able to use that and to have that and to show that even in real-time interviews with suspects and witnesses, and not even getting to the court and jury stage yet, I found to be very valuable and impressive with the technology.
That is amazing, the level of detail that you were able to capture to be able to eliminate any question about what happened on the scene. Because I know when you are in law enforcement, you're working so hard to get all those details, to get to the truth of what happened, and then it goes into the courtroom, and then a lot of times I feel like it's up to, who's the better storyteller, which attorney is going to tell the better story about that evidence. But if you're able to remove most of that and just display the truth of what happened without any questions, that's really impactful on seeing justice actually take place.
That's absolutely right, and it is impactful in achieving the justice and really putting the truth out into the court, because no one wants a misstep in a criminal investigation. No one wants bias. No one wants the appearance that there wasn't a neutral fact-finding mission. And the 3D technology, the laser scanner, really helps that, because defense attorneys, prosecuting attorneys, the defendant, the jury, they all get to see the same exact thing. It's not just through the eyes of someone who thought you should see this, or I should take you to see this. It's show us everything, and then we can zero in on what may be important and what may be relevant to what we're talking about now. But everything is there to view, and I think that is having that in court, having the availability of that data. And honestly, the data doesn't even, when you have the data of a crime scene, the truth is so apparent before even a court case, that a lot of matters are just settled out of court, because you're able to present the defense and the prosecution with enough information to work out the disposition of the case before it even gets to court. So you may be avoiding long, lengthy trials by that. If you do go to trial, then you've got jury members who are really interested in understanding the crime scene. Pictures are one thing, and I can get into a bit of a case if you want me to. Trying not to ramble through the question, but I had one case in particular trying to explain to the jury a trail through a grassy area and through woods where then a crime occurred, a homicide occurred on the side, and where this trail connected a apartment complex to a particular restaurant along a long highway. And when you're trying to describe it and you're taking 2D pictures of it, you can get the idea of it. And a jury can, use their minds as if they were reading a book, and then see the pictures of it and kind of understand a two-dimensional view of, here's the tall grasses about 6 feet high on either side of the trail. So there is a bit of concealment. So when you're trying to determine whether someone tried to conceal their crime, that's another big one to prove intent. Would a reasonable person presume that they were concealed from the general public while they were committing the crime? You can take a picture of that. You can see that. You can articulate that. You can measure the height of the vegetation around and show that in a picture. But in this particular case, when I'm able to scan and have a 3D scan going all the way down the trail at different intervals, and then I'm able to take a fly through and actually walk a jury or a defense attorney or a suspect or the prosecuting attorney or witnesses who claim they saw what they saw, and actually go through those perspectives and go down this trail. And I can turn the camera to the left and I can turn the camera to the right, and I can see the vegetation to the right, and I can put the height of where we're at the height of a general person, 5.5 to 6 feet or so, and what a reasonable person would expect. You're now immersed in that. You're now able to stand at a fixed position and look around and see on a TV screen, not to mention VR, which I don't have a lot of experience doing that in court, or no experience in court. But to be able to have that type of perception for the jury really engages a jury. It helps them feel, I think, this is my opinion, but I think it helps them feel so much more knowledgeable about the decision they're going to make, the very important decision that they have to make. And I've seen that. I've seen what that's done in court, and taken it in front of grand juries where they're allowed to ask questions as you're presenting the information. And it's just incredible to see the difference of what 3D laser scanning and a 3D point cloud means to the entire case.
Those visualizations are so important in just helping people understand what actually happened on that scene. And in that particular case, did it lead to a faster and easier resolution?
Well, in that case, I was brought in because the attorney wanted to understand what a jury saw actually in 3D laser scanning. And so this was a multi jurisdictional grand jury that had been convened, and it did lead to a conviction. But it didn't even have to go to trial because once we went to the grand jury, and a grand jury would be ones to indict in Virginia, indict, and which means they would go straight past the general district court, the lower courts, and go directly into the upper courts for a felony charge. And the prosecuting attorney to be able to ask questions to the jury about what they think and what they want to see and how they interpret it. Yes, it made a huge impact in being able to respond to their questions, and in them being able to be essentially on scene. A 2D picture tells a story. We're all used to 2D pictures and crime scene sketches, and we can tell a story and we can draw arrows and we can have pointers and take them through. But when you have a 3D model space on a crime scene, you have taken someone there. You've brought them to the scene, and they're able to look around. If we think about when you browse for home listings and you're able to go inside the home and see a panoramic view of the home, it just gives you such a different perception than if you're just flipping through the pictures of the home. You're able to get a spatial awareness of the area. You're kind of able to feel the dimensions. And that's what happened in that particular case, to be able to show intent of concealing down the middle of this long trail and why someone might walk down this trail. And we can take the speed of an average person's walk and do a fly through and go down this trail and record that video at a real time speed that someone would take the trail and how much time they would have to get away from it. So when you could break that case down and that one particular scan in so many ways and show how simply putting a scanner and taking 12 or 15 scan positions, the value that brings to a case. And really now with the technology we have and the scanners that Leica offers, being able to do each one of those in less than a few or a couple of minutes on each one, and the value that brings it becomes almost a no-brainer that this is just something that should be standard best practices for investigations.
I think the evidence for having a laser scanner within an agency is very compelling. And yes, that pun was intended. But at the same time, technology has evolved so quickly. There are so many options available now for even just laser scanning, and that's not even considering all the drones that are available and the other evidence collection technologies that are available. How should someone in law enforcement and in the investigative line of work, how should they evaluate technology?
Well, it's a good point you bring up because there's a couple of ways to look at it. Do we have a one size fits all product, a tool, a solution, and we have to look at it from a solutions type standpoint? It's not that you can say, I think we need a laser scanner and that be the end all be all, because it really depends on, as that officer is looking into what they're doing or what they want, it is looking into what they are doing. What is the end goal? What are they trying to accomplish? Are they trying to get technology that traffic investigators can use for fatal crashes, but that is also shared by crime scene investigators? But they are also maybe performing search and rescue missions, or they're doing pre-scan security missions. Maybe they're a municipality that have a lot of different festivals and events, and maybe we're not even talking about post-crime. We're talking about just mapping events so that we can develop plans and incident plans for different events. And that's part of it, is getting floor plans, getting routes, escape routes, fire exits, emergency exits. And so we do have to look at it holistically as they're looking into this technology about what their department needs are. And I think that myself and my colleagues, that's one thing we love about being on this side of the industry now, is that we've been inside, we've experienced the different needs of a department and all the different dynamics. Like I talked to you about these civil disturbances that I responded to, or a crime scene in the middle of the night, or pre-scanning for a dignitary that has come, or documenting important landmarks in the states, or state buildings, or schools. All of the different ways that we can use technology, and then we can start looking at, do we need GPS to be a part of that data collection? GNSS? Do we need satellites? RTK correction? Do we just need a 3D point cloud, or do we also need to add total station work into that? Do we Do we need to fly it? Do we need to take UAVs, as you said, and do we need 2D imaging? Or do we need to be able to put in 3D space, taller buildings and structures, and be able to fly crash scenes, but actually have a 3D point cloud from the air with a UAV, which is now we have with our lidar drones. So as they're looking at it, you really have to start at, what do we want the end result to be? What do we want as a deliverable? We want a crime scene deliverable for court. We want event deliverables for festivals and such. We want to be able to document after any civil disturbances, and then find the best technology that starts to meet all of those things, and then what technology would work together as part of an entire toolkit, a holistic approach to really public safety management.
Sounds like such a good approach. I would think that for an agency, it would be really easy to say, "Oh, I need a laser scanner," because that's what all the other agencies are using, and I know that it's a good tool, but that's kind of narrow-minded to a certain point. Because yes, a laser scanner is good, but you need to zoom out a little bit and consider all the other technologies that you might be able to use along with that scanner that will give you even better information. Because at the end of the day, again, it's all about getting to the truth of what actually happened at that scene. And so Leica Geosystems, of course, has laser scanners. You, in your role with Virginia State Police, you were handed a Leica Geosystems laser scanner here, learned how to use this. But I'm sure at a certain point, you were also curious about other technologies too. Why would you say that an agency would want to rely on Leica Geosystems as a brand, as opposed to some other brand of technology?
Well, there are many different products, and that's one of the unique challenges with being a consultative account manager, a consultative sales rep, for the lack of a better term, for public safety agencies. Because I do need to know a bit about all the different products, from a handheld disto to a 3D laser scanner to a UAV drone to ground penetrating radar, laser scanner on a robot dog, all the different things, GNSS, GPS, single point, total stations, all of these different things. So as a brand, I think that Leica is incredible, and that Leica brings all of this technology, and Leica masters all of it beautifully. It's not, from what I've learned here about Leica products, because I knew just laser scanning from Leica. I did not use total station. I did not use GPS, GNSS gear. I've learned all that post Leica. But for me to see all the devices that Leica offers, and everyone just seems pretty near perfect in the way that they operate. It's not, I haven't seen a product from Leica be presented that is just a product to try to keep up with the market and say that we do this and do it okay, just so that we can get into the market. I mean, sometimes it seems that Leica's held back from that in order to perfect a product. So it seems like Leica doesn't quite have that offering yet. But I've learned, in my opinion, just from what I've observed, it's because when it comes out, it has to be right. And that's what Leica has always said. And so when I see total stations and how they master their job perfectly, and see all the benefits of GNSS and GPS, and how easy really they are to use, and the functionality come to it. You said just a minute ago that maybe a laser scanner would just be a bit narrow-minded to just think in those terms. And a laser scanner can solve a lot of issues. A laser scanner just about does it all, but it is. Do you want to geo-reference all of your scans, all of your scenes? Do you want to put them back into the real world and have real world coordinates, and have RTK correction, and then you can add products like the Flex 100. I mean, even Leica's perfected that for when someone just kind of wants some RTK points and some geo-referenced data, but also can work a scene with a Flex 100 by using points, because it's what we do with that data later. And now we've made our software capable of ingesting all those different forms of data to give the officer what they need. So as they're looking at it, and maybe they're just running a tape measure at the scene, and they're just collecting manual points. Well, we also have software that will work for you. Simple sketching software that you can recreate your scene, no laser scanner required, because maybe that's where your budget is. Maybe you want a laser scanner, but your budget is at the point that you're having to run a tape measure and do your triangulation or your baseline offsets, but you want to digitize your scene, and that can be done with the same software that you would bring 3D laser scanning data into as well, so that you can set yourself up to grow into more technology.
A lot of exciting possibilities. And certainly it sounds like when your reputation is on the line, as it absolutely is when you're in law enforcement, that brand really does matter, because you need something that you can rely on. You need something that where you have a partner really that can help you think about all the different potential applications of the technology and how you can get more out of it. And so it's certainly something to be aware of. Now, I would think that on this side of the journey, now that you're representing technology and helping agencies adopt technology, that you encounter some misconceptions. Is there one misconception that really stands out in your mind above the others?
There is a misconception. One is that this technology is really for, it's not really tailored to law enforcement, that it's kind of private sector technology. It's more for engineers, surveyors, architects, construction, which is using the technology, having great success with it, and they are on the forefront of that. But you just said something just a second ago as you were framing this question about having a partner in Leica. And so I just wanted to hit on that really quick, because I think it could relate to the your previous question about Leica as a brand, of how we are partners. Because just like we're talking about my experience in police work, that's all of my colleagues, which I believe you have interviewed, most of them as well as a tech insider, who have spent years in law enforcement. And that's what we bring to the table. We bring experience. So we are here in this industry telling you that this technology is for law enforcement, that this technology, it almost seems to me sometimes that they made the RTC 360 with public safety in mind, because it's the ease of use with it, the limited amount of buttons that you have to push and learn, because these are all pain points in law enforcement. And there's misconceptions that the technology is too difficult to use. And when I show the RTC 360 and show that it really has a red play button, and it has 3 resolution settings, and do you want imaging, it's on or off, whether you want it or not. And it's going to help you and to do auto registration and help you register with its visual inertial system, its viz technology, and how it's just going to allow you to onboard more people. Misconception is training. Misconception is we lose people through attrition, through promoting or retiring, and they take that technology with them. There's a misconception that they have to specialize and be a specialist in this technology. And if I can do it, and I'll knock my colleague Daryl Whitfield, who if he was sitting here with me, I'd say the same thing. If he can do it, and we all know Kevin Kinney can do it because he's really smart. But if me and Daryl can hang out and run scans and produce all these point clouds and get down to deliverables, he's going to kill me for saying this. But if we can do that, then I really think anybody at a police agency can. And that's what Leica has done, is made it very simple and made it very applicable. We joke in the industry that something's cop proof, and that can relate to just cops are hard on gear. I mean, knocking around gear, moving around from vehicle to vehicle. Leica, it is cop proof in the way that Leica builds a very durable product. That's why we're a value based product. It's very durable. It's built well the first time, and it's and then cop proof in the sense of ease of use, because there's a misconception that it's difficult to use, and there's a lot of people, a lot of officers that may be voluntold, we call it, to operate this equipment. They may come in kind of like I did as an agent, and they're told, here's this equipment, learn how to use it. And they didn't seek it out like maybe a private sector company would have. They're just kind of told to use it. So with a rank and file member like I was, to be able to be told to use it, it could be very intimidating if technology is sort of not your thing. And that's the misconception, is the difficulty and the fear of failure with it and being unable to grasp it. But I've found that the Leica products, and it's getting better and better all the time. And the partnership we have with our agencies to be able to train them to use the products, and how easy it is to use, and how quick it is to get to an actual deliverable, to get to something that someone can actually use. The data collection on scene, the speed that Leica offers, the efficiency on scene, and not to drag this question out, but there's also a misconception that laser scanning is laser scanning. That one LiDAR scanner is kind of the same as another. I hear that. It's kind of like, well, they're all kind of the same, right? And it's maybe in theory, maybe the speed of light is always the same. Time of flight and how fast it takes a laser to leave a prism and hit a surface and come back to the prism. The law of physics are the same between them, but the way in which that data is collected and the way it's processed in that data collector and the interface of that data collector and how it communicates with the back-end software and how it communicates with devices while you're collecting it on scene, and what it does for you as far as inertial measurement units, to take out a lot of the difficulties of leveling it from the ground up, and the time savings that is, and how all those seconds and minutes accumulate at a scene. And when you're looking at officer safety needs, and when an RTC 360 can get you a beautiful data set with HDR imaging and do that in under 2 minutes, and you look at other laser scanners that may take 15 minutes, 10 plus minutes to get that same data set, that's significant. So I would say that's another a pretty common misconception, is that laser scanning is laser scanning. You just kind of go with the price, and it's not the case. You pay that price later in time, in overtime hours, in time on scene, in road closures, and Leica's been able to find a way to give products with the best data collection in the most efficient way.
That is such a great point. And I would imagine that you are, as excited as you are about the technology, the current state of technology, where you've seen it just in the amount of time that you've worked with technology, you're probably constantly looking ahead as well as what the future possibilities might be. What ideas most intrigue you about where things are headed?
I will tell you that I didn't pay a lot of attention to VR, to virtual reality at the beginning, because I don't know, you put on these VR goggles, and I didn't really see the big impact until I put on VR goggles and walked into a crime scene. And I can, we can make fun of each other as we move around within a VR space, which we often do. So we do it for a lot of fun. But also when you're looking at it seriously, and you put on goggles and you've scanned a scene in 3D, and I'm able to actually kneel down on the floor and look at gouge marks in the pavement as if I was on scene. I could do the same thing as if I was there on scene and see the gouge marks. I can look down at a yaw mark and see that yaw mark and how it curves around the scene. I'm looking at it at the angle that I would on scene. I can look at trajectory rods as I would evaluate them on scene, and generally get a good idea of the trajectory of a bullet and where it came from. I can look at those things in VR. That really excites me. It really excites me to think about an investigator, because we talked earlier about revisiting a scene anytime you want. Imagine revisiting it, and you talk about spatial awareness. You've got the goggles on, and you're really just looking around, and you're inside that scene. And of course, you don't have to have a real big room, because you can move with the controller to go different places of the scene and then look around. But we have that's agencies can do that right now. We have that ability to do that. We have it in our TrueView deliverable, and agencies can use that to get inside that. Now, getting that into a courtroom and having jury members put on VR goggles, that's what really excites me as well. Obviously, coming from the more criminal prosecution side, but also as a fact finder, because we want to prosecute, but we also want to exonerate. And this information is going to do either one of those things, because the information is the truth. So if we can take juries into the truth and be able to engage jurors, because that's one thing we see in court cases are there are jurors that are there. They're required to be there. They're doing their civic duty, but sometimes, they may or may not be engaged in all the facts all of the time because you're demanding that they listen hours on end. Well, you take them into a scene and they've got virtual reality goggles on, and they're able to actually get into the scene and be walked through the scene. Not everybody may love that all the time, but I'm really excited at the prospect of that. That's probably the first thing that comes to mind, is taking our technology, because I think the data collection is as perfect as it can get. I'm not sure how much better the RTC 360 could get. I don't know how, with the speed that it is and the image quality and the data quality and the range that it takes and the ease of use and just being an all-in-one package, if we're talking about laser scanning specifically, I don't know what they're going to do next with that, because it just seems like the perfect laser scanner to me. But being able to take that data now and to be able to do things like VR is exciting, and I like to see what we can put into VR and how we can introduce that more into crime scene investigation.
So exciting to think about all those possibilities and how technology might take us even further, especially when you think about that visualization aspect and really putting someone and in that scene and helping them experience what actually happened. It's hard to imagine even getting to that place where it feels real, but that definitely seems like that's where we're headed. So, Mike, thinking back, if you could go back in time to when you first graduated from the police academy, you had your whole law enforcement career still ahead of you. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back to that point?
I would say learn the basics of the job out the gate. learn the basics of dealing with the public, and how to deal with the public's temperament against what you do. Sometimes it's great, it's positive, and other times you have very negative interactions with the public. So I would say, get that down, perfect that. But then after that, try to be on the forefront of everything that you can. I would tell myself, take advantage of any training that you can. I did take advantage of some crash reconstruction training, but not as much as I could have. Where I went more the crime scene side, but I've been enough in crash investigation and as a trooper doing basic crash investigation that it's really helped me from people who are experts in the field to be able to relate to what they're looking for. I know what they need. I know what they're looking for. I may not be able to exactly do all the mathematical formulas that they can do to get the drag and coefficients and determine those different types of data outputs, which now software and laser scanning has made that actually pretty incredible. I can do that in Map 360 now. But I would tell myself, just get into every training and any technology training that I can get into, because technology, as you've said, is rapidly developing, and criminals are seizing the opportunity to use any technology that they can. Obviously with cell phones and everything being on cell phones that are on cell phones, and just being able to bring technology into court, because I think at the end of it, when you have a jury, like we've discussed, sitting in a courtroom and they're looking at judging or determining someone's guilt or innocent, and as our generations come up that are much more into technology and used to seeing technology and expecting to see technology and engaged with technology, law enforcement being able to bring that type of technology to them, stuff that they're kind of familiar with seeing, and being able to utilize that in a criminal investigation and being able to bring the truth out, whichever way that may lead, I think is critically important. And I think law enforcement is going to lean more on trying to develop and find the technology that helps them complete that mission. So I would tell myself, just really get into technology, and it's a bit of what I subscribed to when I became an agent, and they put a laser scanner in front of me as well. Just achieve this. This is technology. This is advancement, and I can help be kind of on the cusp of even though it had been around a bit, but I can be part of this technology advancement with law enforcement. The private sector is doing it. Everybody else is advancing in technology, and law enforcement should be able to keep up in the same way. And I would tell myself, get yourself trained, and be ready for when law enforcement wants to adopt a new technology, that I could be there and ready to embrace it and help the agency with that new technology.
So keep learning, keep exploring, reach out to guys
Absolutely.
like you, Mike, and the rest of the team that you can help guide them in that journey. Excellent advice. Michael Heath, thank you so much for being on the program with us today. It has been a fantastic discussion. I look forward to having you on again at some point in the future.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Be sure to check out the description for additional resources on this topic. If you enjoyed this content, give us a like. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Tech Insider.